Right, so let me just run through the types of snap fasteners or poppers that I have got in front of me. So this is underneath all of this is a recently published coat pattern of mine. It's my Jurassic coat design, and I was really unsure about what I wanted to do with the buttons. So I decided to cover some fasteners. Loved it, bit obsessed with it now. But these aren't sort of the regular sew on poppers that you would find just for general garment sewing. In fact, I don't think I've ever seen these before, but I ordered them online. So they're a plastic base and it measures 25 millimeters. And so the metal stud is only a small part in the center. So it's got quite a small post here. And so they call this the post. And we'll just call that the dip. I can't remember what that's called. The pit. And that snaps together. And they've only got 4 holes to sew on. But I really like these. They're kind of minimalistic, and I like the large size of them. So that's one example. And then should we go down in size? So I've got these ones which I covered in a pink silk, silk dupion, and these are sort of more what you would expect to see in dressmaking shop, and these are 18 millimeter in diameter, so smaller than these ones, but maybe slightly larger than you would use on a dress, let's say. So maybe a cardigan, jacket, that type of thing. And they've got a larger post than these ones, so doesn't really make any difference. I think they're all quite secure. This one actually maybe is easier to pull apart than this one, I would say. Yeah, definitely. So there's those ones and those ones, and also this has got a hole going through where the dip is, and yeah, this has got a hole, but like there's also, it's a metal pit to house the post type of thing, just with a little tiny hole in the middle. And then I've got the last ones here, and again they are slightly bigger than ones you might see on just everyday clothing, but these could probably work really great on shirts, well, cardigans again. And these ones are 12 millimeters in diameter. So as you can see, they're on a vintage packet, so they're not something I've bought brand new. These are just something I've picked up somewhere along the way. These ones I got from Fabricland. They were relatively cheap for a larger popper, because they do get more expensive the bigger they get. And these ones I just ordered on the internet, probably from eBay, because that's where I tend to find a lot of that stuff. So fabrics you want to consider to be covering poppers with is anything lightweight. So I've done these two are in a cotton lawn, which is a nice tight weave, and so you don't expect it to fray too much when you're working with it, and it behaves really well. The silk, I would imagine this wouldn't wear so well with this post going in this dip. Eventually that will start to fray, but it looks nice. You could always just recover it if that did happen. So let's get to the tutorial, because I've been waffling on too much. Right, so these are some of the materials that I shall be using. So I've got an awl, or anything pointy and stabby could do to poke some holes in the fabric. I've got this fabric marking pencil, just to draw the circle that I want to cut from my fabric. A good pair of scissors. I've got some cotton lawn here, which is just a scrap that was a sample sent in the post, which is a good reason to not throw anything away because this is going to come in perfectly handy. My press stud and some hand sewing thread and a needle. So what I shall do is on the back of this fabric, I'll just draw the circles of fabric that I shall use to cover this. So if I start with this piece, I'll just do it what I think looks like a good enough distance to gather on the reverse side. So about 1/2 centimetre extra. Right, so let's cut that out. Right, there we go. And then what I'll do is I'll hold that over there, and then I'll get my awl and I will just find where the centre is and stab a hole in it. So I've marked, don't know if you'll be able to see that, but there is a hole, so I'll just pop that through there for you. And then what I'll do now is I'll just fold it. Because this post is quite thick, stabbing a hole with the awl is actually not going to be big enough to like fit it over there. So I just folded my circle into quarters there, and I'll just nick the tip off. You really just want to nick the tiniest piece of fabric off because you don't want to make a hole too big. So hopefully you can see there that there's a hole in the middle of my circle of fabric, and then hopefully that will just be enough to stretch over the post so it's a tight fit. And then that's not going anywhere. Okay, and then I shall turn that around and I'll thread my sewing needle, which I could have done ahead of time, sure. Right, let's see if my eyes are working today. Right, I'll just tie a knot, you know, like so I've worked in sewing rooms and that, and my knot tying skills are atrocious because there's people that can just roll it off their fingers and do it really quickly, and I've never been able to do that in the whole time I've been sewing. So I just do it my fiddly old way, and I'm happy with that because I know it works. Right, so I've got a knot in the end of my thread. I'm just going to do an anchor stitch just in case. I know that knot won't pull through, it's quite large, but just in case it was to pull through, I just do an anchor stitch to start. So that's just a back stitch, and then I shall proceed to do a running stitch all the way around the edge of this circle. I'm just making sure that I've got the right side facing outwards of the print. Just had a little scare of thinking I had it the wrong way around, but looks all right. So relatively small stitches, but I wouldn't worry too much. You want it to gather nicely, but you also don't want to spend too long doing it. Oops, there's a knot in my thread, so I'll just pull that little, there we go. that little knot out. Almost at the end. Right, then I'll just go past my knot out onto the right side. Of course, I've got that twisted. Right. So now I just want to give it a really good tug, but carefully, because you don't want it to slide off of that post, you know, on the right side. So you want it to stay in position there. Oh, this is looking pretty. Make sure it's really nice and as tight as you can get it. And then once it's there, ouch, I'll fasten it off. Sorry, camera. And then just before I cut the thread, I always thread back through my work, so I'm never cutting close to the knot. And then you can tie that off, and that's one half done. Now, an extra step you could do, oh, I should have shown it to you before, but before you place your fabric into its final position, you could seal off those cut edges where the post goes through that fabric with some clear nail varnish, or you could even interface that part of the circle maybe if you didn't have clear nail varnish. I just leave it as it is. I don't know if it'll wear that much, but those are your two other options, or if you've got some fabric glue or something. But I'm happy with that as it is. So now we need to cover this half. Now, there's two ways of doing it really. You could cut your circle out of the fabric and get it all in position, or something that I do like to do is, oopsie, might get a bit tiresome if you had loads to do, is to position this onto the fabric and then push that in so that I know how much extra it's going to take to go into that dip, and then I'll just cut my circle. Now it's all attached together. Because that dip actually will take quite a lot of fabric, so I don't want to end up with too little. And even though it's only a small scrap, this is still precious. I've been hoarding it. I don't want to waste it now. I wonder what I'll use this precious popper for. Right, so whilst it's all still pushed together like that, sorry, my hands are so cold. It's actually it's December, because you might be watching this a long time after I filmed this video, and it's currently freezing outside, and we've had a really cold spell here in the UK, so my hands are a bit colder than normal. Right, so same as before, I'll thread through, ouch, do my anchor stitch, and then just proceed to do a running stitch all the way around. Might speed this up for you so you don't have to watch. Right, so we've got to the end. I need to thread back through to the right side, don't I? So that we can gather all this up like so and pull it really tight before fastening off. Now, before I cut my thread, what I'm actually going to do is, because do you remember when I showed you the dip on this and there's a hole in the middle of these? I'm actually going to pull those apart. And then, so another thing I have seen in other tutorials is that you can use your nail varnish or fabric glue to seal this as well, and or like you could cut this hole out, seal it, and I guess it kind of partly glues it to the popper, or you could not cut it, put some gluey stuff on it, and it would stay in place that way. But because there's that hole there, I'm going to go through my hole and try and pull that bit in. Anchor it to there. And then I'll just go through once more, just so that it doesn't become slack and keep popping out. There we go. And I'll anchor that to this side. I hope this is in shot. It's really hard to see. Right, let's have a look. So there we go. And then once that's sewn onto a garment, you could sew through that hole again, sewing it onto the garment if you wanted. But that's our finished popper. So let me tie that thread off properly. What I would say is, because I could use this thread to sew it to the garment now, but learn from my mistakes. I have done that, and then I've realised I want to move it. And if you want to unpick it from a garment with the same thread that you've sewn it with, if that makes sense, then you risk all of this coming undone. So it's best to tie off and then reattach your thread to the garment before sewing this on. I think I could have made that a bit tighter, but that gives you the idea anyway. So those are both halves. Let me get my original ones. And so I could sew them on here and they would look gorgeous. So yeah, it's just a really nice technique that can be used on all sorts of garments. Like I said, these might be nice on a shirt if it was like the matching cotton lawn, that would look lovely. Or you could have a contrasting plain cardigans, that would look great. Coats, I think it's just a really nice touch, and it just, you can put more of your stamp onto the finishing details. So if I give you a close-up of the press studs that I did sew to my coat, you'll see that this pit, I've done it slightly differently to the one I've just shown you in the tutorial, because it literally is just a hole. So I just poked a hole with an awl and pushed the two parts together so that it forced the fabric into the place it wanted to go. And because it's a nice cotton lawn, it just has stayed there, and I haven't sealed it with any nail varnish or fabric glue or anything. That's literally just as it was, and I don't expect it to move really. So yeah, I just wanted to show you that because it's a different way of doing stuff. But yeah, like I said, you could remove this circle of fabric and seal it with some fabric glue, so that it's practically glued to the metal press stud, because I can see that it might wear over time where the post keeps rubbing against the fabric. But that'll be something to experiment with and find a way that works for you. Obviously, these can be recovered at any time, so that's the great thing about them. You can, if they start to wear out, you can change them up and change the fabric round. So hopefully it's just a nice extra addition to add to your garments. So I hope you like it, and let me know how you get on. Bye.